Penguin Random House Audio presents The Crown, The Official Companion by Robert Lacey. Read for you by Jennings.
Forward by Peter Morgan. What is real and what is imagined? What is truth and what is fiction? What happened? What did not? It's become clear that many viewers, while watching The Crown, did so while scrolling through the pages of Wikipedia, searching for answers to these questions. It was an extraordinary pleasure to write The Crown, to anatomize the many vivid characters and events that make up the story in the years 1947 to 1955. But it was sheer agony to condense 10 dramatic, event-filled years of history into just 10 hours of television. So I was delighted by the suggestion that the royal historian Robert Lacey should take up the challenge to clear things up and separate fact from fiction, while telling us a great deal more. So let me hand you over to Robert to take you back to 1947, when the king realizes he is gravely ill, and his eldest daughter, the shy 21-year-old Princess Elizabeth, is about to marry a handsome but fractious young foreigner of whom nobody seems comfortably sure. Chapter 1. Wolferton Splash. Love and Marriage. Buckingham Palace, 1947, reads the caption, and Episode 1 of The Crown takes us straight inside it, to discover the cancer-stricken King George VI leaning over a lavatory bowl, painfully coughing up his life's blood. The king is dying, made ready for the Queen. Kneeling in the palace throne room is Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten, RN, lean and threadbare in his wartime uniform, ready to be ennobled before his wedding to Princess Elizabeth the next day. The Lord Chancellor, the Earl Marshal, and a row of stern establishment faces look on as the ailing monarch takes hold of the sword that will transform his future son-in-law from commoner to royal, their eyes darting with alarm as the king starts to stutter. Then George VI gamely clenches his jaw, twists his tongue around Philip's trio of titles, and rounds off the list with the highest honour in his gift, the Order of the Garter, with which Edward III first knighted his fighting companions in 1348. His Majesty has been pleased to authorise the use of the prefix His Royal Highness by Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten, reported The Times next day, 20th of November, 1947, and to approve that the dignity of a dukedom of the United Kingdom be conferred upon him by the name, style, and title of Baron Greenwich of Greenwich, a tribute to Philip's naval background, Earl of Merioneth, a nod to Wales, and Duke of Edinburgh, a traditional royal dukedom and a compliment to Scotland. The king touched Lieutenant Mountbatten on each shoulder with a sword as he knelt before him in the ceremony of the accolade of knighthood and invested him with the insignia of the Order of the Garter. Which is all pretty much as we see things on the screen. The foreigner had been made familiar, with just one difference. As a prelude to the investiture scene, we watch His Royal Highness Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark renounce his Greek nationality and all foreign titles to become a British citizen. The obscure and dubious foreign prince becomes a brave British war hero in front of our eyes. In reality, however, Philip had already become a British citizen earlier that year via the routine, form-filling legal process, and certainly not inside Buckingham Palace. History records that Prince Philip of Greece renounced his Greek titles to receive his British citizenship on the 18th of March 1947 under the British Nationality and Status of Aliens Act, so he went by the name of plain Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten, RN, for a full 8 months before his father-in-law ennobled him that November. You are watching an historical drama, dear listener, not a history documentary. The Crown is a work of creative fiction, that has been inspired by the wisdom and spirit of real events. To understand Philip, we need to witness his renunciation of his foreign royal status at the very moment we first meet him, the better to savour his full entry into the House of Windsor the next day. What you see on the screen is both truth and invention, in the age-old tradition of historical drama. Friedrich Schiller's revered and much translated Maria Stuart, first staged in 1800, is often cited as the classic example of a history play, depicting the bitter clash of personalities where Mary Queen of Scots came face to face with Queen Elizabeth I, except that in history the two women never met. As this book will demonstrate, The Crown is based on meticulous factual research, but it is also a TV show, an artfully arranged assemblage of pixels whose purpose is to entertain, to explore great characters and themes in the life of a nation, and to winkle out the meaning of extraordinary events. The ultimate power of the ancient and modern British monarchy lies in its capacity to generate heartfelt emotion, sometimes angry and hostile, but more usually curious and admiring, and always sentimental to an extraordinary degree. Of the various forms of government that have prevailed in the world, wrote the historian Edward Gibbon, an hereditary monarchy seems to present the fairest scope for ridicule. These are the paradoxes that Peter Morgan seeks to address in The Crown, whose drama revolves around two very real people, Elizabeth Windsor and Philip Mountbatten, and the extraordinary lifetime's adventure on which they embark together. It's the dramatization of a 7-decade relationship, a love story that is both simple and highly complicated. So that is why episode 1 of the series does not begin with the accession of Queen Elizabeth II in February 1952, nor with her solemn crowning in June the following year, grand constitutional landmarks though both events were. We first meet Elizabeth, half a decade earlier, on the eve of her wedding to Philip. In reality, neither of the couple has ever been quite sure precisely where and when they first met, but they do recall exactly when they first took serious notice of each other. "We may have met before," wrote Princess Elizabeth in 1947, trying to be helpful in response to a court correspondent's request, "at the coronation of George VI in May 1937, or the Duchess of Kent's wedding in November 1934. As direct descendants of Queen Victoria, Elizabeth and Philip were both children of the glamorous and fading miasma of 19th-century European royalty that still gathered for such events. "But the first time I remember meeting Philip," wrote Elizabeth, heavily underlining the word remember, "was at the Royal Naval College, Dartmouth, in July 1939, just before the war." The meeting had been masterminded by George VI's cousin, Lord Louis Dickey Mountbatten, who, like the King, had trained at Dartmouth as a naval cadet. The Mountbatten destiny had been intertwined with that of the House of Windsor since the reign of Queen Victoria. Dickey, like George VI, was one of her great-grandchildren, and his father, Louis, had been First Lord of the Admiralty at the outbreak of the First World War. But though this elder Louis had risen to First Lord on merit after 46 years of patriotic naval service, he was German by birth, and less than 3 months after hostilities started, he had been hounded out of office during the popular witch hunt against all things Teutonic, from German sausages to sausage dogs. The ties between Windsor and Mountbatten had been bound yet closer by this younger Louis, who had been with the new George VI on the sad evening in December 1936, when the two men had stood and watched the recently abdicated Edward VIII pack his bags to go into exile. "Dicky, this is absolutely terrible," Mountbatten recalled the new king saying, close to tears. "I'm only a naval officer. It's the only thing I know about." "That is a very curious coincidence," Lord Mountbatten replied, "for my father once told me that when the Duke of Clarence died, in 1892, your father, the future George V, came to him and said almost the same things that you have said to me now, and my father answered, 'George, you're wrong. There is no more fitting preparation for a king than to have been
Sample complete. Ready to continue?